Hey everybody, Mark Burgess here, Big East Bass Fishing, and thank you for checking out another one of my videos, and I really appreciate it. So, I talked about in the last video, one of my last videos that I did on KVD, Kevin Van Dam, that I had a couple things I wanted to talk about, two real hot topics going on in the industry right now. One was that Kevin was retiring, the other one was forward-facing Sonar. Okay, so here's my take on it, where I'm at right now. Like it, love it, hate it, good, bad, ugly. It is what it is, to use that expression. So to put things into context, I just wanted to talk about where the sport was when I came into it and where it is now, and how much has changed. So, you know, we all know back in the day, you know, I'm talking about professional bass tournaments for the most part, okay? You know, 18-foot boats with 150s on them, that was the standard with bass. Limited electronics, flashes were the deal. And that pretty much was, you know, the equipment that you had at the time, rods and reels and so forth to go along with it, you know, at whatever level they were at then. Certainly not what they are now. Okay, so back when I started, I've been fishing my entire life. Okay, so, you know, I grew up fishing the salt, commercial rod and reel with my dad. And then, you know, found out about this freshwater stuff going on, because he had a tackle shop for over 50 years, and guys would come in and want certain baits that they'd seen and read about in magazines and stuff like that. I started, you know, realizing there was this whole freshwater side of things. So, you know, I've seen equipment, you know, that I still have to this day, that works fine on the saltwater side. But, you know, nothing like what we have available today. So when I came into the sport on a professional level, even at a club level, back up to early 90s at the club level, you know, 18-foot boats with 150s were pretty standard. And then we quickly got into, you know, bigger boats, bigger motors. There was really, you know, only a couple of options for trolling motors. Electronics, you know, flasher were, you know, common to have on a boat, and you had to learn how to read a flasher. You know, we also had compasses on our boats, and things quickly changed. So, you know, went from that 18-foot boat with a 150, limited, you know, 2D sonar, Lowrance at the time. I started actually with a Humminbird flasher unit on a small aluminum boat prior to having a fiberglass boat. Learned how to read that, and then had one, of course, on my freshwater bass boat. You know, so in that technology, I mean, look how far we've come. Okay, with the trolling motor technology now, you know, from 12 and 24 volt motors, you know, 36 volt now, spot lock. Just, you know, 112 pound thrust, you know, I have the Ultrex on my boat. I can't even imagine fishing without it, okay? I think back to a lot of the tournaments that if I had that technology then, what would have been? Of course, a lot of people would have had it, and it levels the playing field. And that's kind of my point. You know, I went from having no GPS, again, I'm dating myself here, no GPS on my bass boat, fishing places like Okeechobee, Lake of the Ozark, okay, you know, Lake Erie, Champlain, you know, just to name a few. I can remember on Lake of the Ozark, coming out of the creek that the tournament was launching on for practice, getting out, like the first day of practice, coming out of the mouth of that creek, turning up river, up lake, and stopping the boat, turning around, and actually looking back exactly like where my wake was, where I came from, for a landmark. And I still remember it like it was yesterday. It was a tree with bright yellow leaves right on the corner of the creek. Okay, you couldn't miss it. Stood out like a sore thumb. Boom, that was my landmark. And I did that. You had to do that everywhere you went because there was no GPS. No mapping or charts or anything like that. Paper map. I remember running with a folded up paper map in my hand, you know, just trying to just keep from running over something that, you know, would wreck my boat. And get to places where on a map it looked like, you know, it was going to be a good place to fish. And having to, excuse me, having to figure out what was there with baits. Football head jig, deep diving crankbait, Carolina rig, to find the drop off, to find the rock, to sand, to grass transition, stuff like that. Everybody had to, if you were going to compete at that level, that's the way it was. That's how you had to do things. Okay, so as technology got better, you know, like I mentioned, you know, the trolling motor technology, 36 volt trolling motors. You know, we've seen obviously the development of the bigger boats, you know, 225, 200, 250 horsepower motors. We're getting to the places faster. Boats are better engineered to handle big water. They're better fishing platforms, the storage. Certainly the electronics now. And even prior to front-facing sonar, I was with Minn Kota Humminbird and had the early versions of side imaging, and honestly, I did not take advantage of it at first. Okay, I was primarily shallow water power fisherman, and I wasn't utilizing that side imaging until I get up onto the Great Lakes, and oh boy, did I see the advantages of side imaging. I would basically go with the wind 3 to 5 miles on a stretch. If it wasn't like Buffalo where it had defined shoals and things like that, more like the Middle Basin, Cleveland area, Avon Point, you know, just idling or actually going with the wind for 3 to 5 miles, side scanning, you know, 100, 150 feet on both sides. You know, you could scroll over, put a waypoint, see something interesting, scroll over, put a waypoint. And then I'd turn around and I'd systematically fish those waypoints in the wind where I could control the boat better, and figure out if I wanted to keep that waypoint, if it was worth fishing or not. If it was, if I really liked it, even if I didn't get bit, I kept it. If I got bit and I liked it, then of course I'd keep it. If I didn't like what I saw and I didn't get bit, boom, it was eliminated. And it really helped my fishing a lot, especially the offshore stuff. So, you know, flash forward to now, what I'm fishing with, obviously I'm still with Humminbird. Side imaging is a big part of my game now, but I also have Mega 360. I don't have live, okay? Do I see myself getting live? Yes, and I'll tell you why. But first, I mean, so side imaging, I can't do without it. The Mega 360, it really, really helped my fishing, my style of fishing, to be able to see objects out, you know, 20, 40, 60, 80 feet from the boat, exactly where they were, to make a accurate cast on that, whatever it happened to be, rock, weed, log, whatever it is, mussel bed, brim beds, whatever, has been phenomenal. So that kind of dovetailed its way into my fishing, okay, and have not gone in the direction of live sonar yet. So in my opinion, based on all the technology that's changed since I started fishing tournaments, which would have been in the early 90s, and then fishing professionally in the late 90s, from then till now, it's been the same exact situation. It was the haves and the have-nots. And if I felt it gave me an advantage, or, if I was getting beat by the other technology, if you wanted to continue to fish at that level, you had to have that technology, okay? At that level, okay? And that's the key point I want to make. Can you catch fish without forward-facing sonar? Yes. Can you catch fish without live? Yes. Yes, you can. Can you compete? Yes, you can. Take a look at a few guys on the Elite Series, John Cox to be one of them. Guys that primarily fish, shallow, power fish, Matt Herron, Bill Lowen, just to name a few guys that really excel at that game. Are they getting beat by live in certain situations? Yes. Yes, they are. But they're still able to catch fish. I mean, Rick Klun's another one, okay? Likes to fish the way he likes to fish. He's earned that right and is competing at a high level doing that without forward-facing sonar. Okay. However, if you're fishing the Elite Series, even I'll go down to the Opens. Okay, you're fishing MLF and some of those lower tiers just below that. The majority of the guys are using it. And if you want to compete with them, you're going to have to use that technology, okay? Now, if you're not at that level, you're fishing, state tournaments, local opens, club level, stuff like that. Do you need it? No, you don't. Look at the guys that show up in smaller boats and still just taking names, kicking ass, you don't need it, okay? If you're not, especially if you're not competing against it, then certainly you would think maybe that'll give me an advantage, and it will in certain situations that you have to recognize. Some of these, grassroots, bass fishing, it'd be easier for them to come up with rules, no forward-facing sonar. Okay. So if there's circuits or trails or clubs, open tournaments that don't allow forward-facing sonar, and you don't have forward-facing sonar, then by all means fish those. Okay. If you want to use your forward-facing sonar, then fish at a level that you're competing against guys that are using that and you're getting beat by it. Okay. As with any of this technology, it's how you use it, and you can already see fish are becoming wary of the front-facing sonar. They know they're being followed. They can hear that trolling motor turned up, following those fish around. When they repeatedly get a bait tossed in front of them, they're not protecting a bed or anything like that. That they're getting harassed and they want nothing to do with it. But yet you can still catch a lot of fish doing it. As the same thing without it. So there are certain times of the year that you could fish without forward-facing sonar and do very, very well. Okay, but on the lakes that we've just seen this past few tournaments on both MLF and Elite Series was dominated by forward-facing sonar, in a lot of cases. But even you take a look at, Corey Johnson. Corey Johnson went up shallow. He was visually sight fishing for 5 and 6 pound smallmouth was part of his game, and made the top 10 in a Bassmaster Elite, which is not easy to do. Trust me. So it's just another tool. It's technology allows you to see real-time live fish relating to bait or structure and things like that. And you can see the difference between the last 2 Elite tournaments, Champlain and Thousand Islands, St. Lawrence River, Champlain, those fish, I mean, that tournament was dominated by front-facing sonar and pelagic fish. Roaming around on bait, smelt for the most part, a little bit of perch, but perch tend to be more, to a bottom bait. So, Lake Ontario, of course, you saw drop shot dominate. Fish were closer to the bottom because of the gobies. So it was different. Okay, it was different situations. Forward-facing sonar was used in certain situations to catch those fish. And like I said, I'll repeat. It's the latest technology, and in order to compete at that level, against those guys, the caliber of guys that are using it, then you have to do that. But you saw guys that stayed in the river because the weather was really bad that first day of the tournament. Guys that stayed in the river and caught 18 to 20 pounds didn't even make a top 50. Okay, guys that braved the lake and get out on those fish did a lot better. So from a fan's standpoint, because not only am I a tournament competitor, I'm also a fan of the sport. And I will be honest with myself, as I am with you right now. Watching it is not the most exciting thing I've ever seen on the internet live for tournament coverage. So, I still like watching the anglers, what they're going through, how they're positioning the boat, how they're fishing, what they're fishing, what the system is, how they're rigging the bait, what baits they're using, where they're fishing. That is all very interesting to me, that I enjoy watching as well. How they land the fish, because they have no net rule. That's all very entertaining to me. I like when Humminbird had the inset. When you're watching, you could see the angler, hear what he's saying, see where he's doing his thing, and also see what's on the screen, what he's looking at. Okay, so you can actually see the fish that he's targeting, how it's relating to a school of bait, or a rock pile, or what have you, or standing timber, that kind of thing, and seeing the bait and all that. I think I like that. But generally, yeah, just watching them just staring down at a screen, that's not very entertaining. I think we all will agree on that. So that's my take on front-facing sonar. I don't hate it, that's for sure. I like the technology. It's like anything. I'm sitting here talking to you in front of a GoPro camera. It's like this big. Our phones, I'm probably going to basically start doing everything off of iPhone 14 going forward. Why? Because of the technology in that area. I mean, right now that phone, it can do amazing things. I don't necessarily need to do what I'm doing right now and how I'm doing it right now. I can do it on that phone because of technology. So that's just technology, and it's learning how to use it, how to embrace it, where not to use it, and put everything in perspective. I mean, if you want to compete at that level, and you feel like you're not achieving your goals, you're not where you want to be, and that's going to help you get there, then by all means. If not, you take Rick Clunn. He's not going to do that. Okay, he's not going to do that. Is he fascinated with the technology? Yeah, he is. He made the comment about how awesome it is being able to see the world that we live in, and all the glory that's available for us to see and enjoy. Being able to see under the water is amazing. Number of comments: Matt Herron, G-Man, Gerald, Dave Lefebvre, just to name a few guys, talking about what it's enabled them to to do. What they make the comment, for as long as we can remember, we thought bass did a certain thing. Okay, the bass we see shallow and catch shallow, we know what they're doing. We think we do anyway. I think we do to a better point than the fish that are offshore. Okay, they like, it's nothing like what we thought. Okay, what they're doing, and there's a huge population of fish that, you know, we didn't even know existed, or maybe we thought they did, but they were uncatchable. I remember when people didn't think you could catch smallmouth in the winter. Yeah. So, I mean, now we catch them through the ice now. So, that's pretty much my take on it. Do I see myself eventually getting live? I think so. I think so. Right now, I'm still, you know, side imaging, Mega 360. I'm going to continue to roll with that. I have not been beat by live that much. I will admit, I have been beat by it in the last year or so at certain tournaments. So that's where I'm at on it. So, I mean, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. The technology, and again, it's you can, to limit certain things. You know, we could debate it for a long period of time. I just think you got to keep an open mind and apply it where you think it needs to be applied, and fish your strengths, and you're always going to do better than most by staying true to yourself, fishing your strengths, focusing on that direction. So kind of nervous about asking, you know, let me know what you think. Let me know where you fall on it, what your thoughts are. And it's, like I said, it's a very hot topic right now. We don't know what the future is going to be. I personally don't see the electronic companies, you know, doing away with it. Which comes to mind, just a real quick little after story. I competed against these two brothers that are from Maine, and this, we're talking, you know, quite a while ago now. They had basically front-facing 2D sonar. It wasn't like Mega 360, but it faced forward, and it enabled them to see a lot like what 360 does, but it enabled them to see objects and drop-offs, weed beds, rock piles, what have you. It enabled them to see structure that was in front of them before they got to it. They were the only ones to have it, and they really did well with it. And that of course made other people want to, you know, do the same thing and step up. And that's technology and competition. That's pretty much what it's all about. I mean, you want to keep up and stay up and be competitive, and if you can, you always want to be ahead of the curve. Okay, I think a lot of people are holding back right now just to see where that curve is going to go. But anytime you can have an advantage, you know, like mapping. Right now, you know, the 3D mapping that we have with Humminbird is unbelievable. You know, and you know, GPS technology, Google Earth, Google Maps, yeah, all of that, and it's all available to us. And yeah, I just think it's the world we live in, and it's going to come down to how you embrace it. So I'm carrying on, and I could go on and on, but maybe we'll do some kind of a live podcast thing or what have you. I'm not sure, but I appreciate you listening, and like I said, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and we'll continue that discussion further. All right, thanks. We'll see you out in the water.